Welcome to this session on Power Platform and Google Gemini integration. Before we start off this session, a bit of intro about myself. My name is Priyaranjan and I go by my shorter name Priyan. And with 15 years of industry experience, I have journeyed from a SharePoint developer to a Power Platform solution architect as well as a pre-sales lead. Currently, I'm working as an independent consultant and I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer and a Microsoft MVP. And I can be reached out on my LinkedIn as well as Twitter handles as well. So let's jump into this session. Google has recently launched their generative AI model Gemini, which marks a significant milestone. So the collaborative efforts of DeepMind, which is a company which was acquired by Google, and Google Research have given rise to the suite of these large language models. Gemini stands out for its multimodal capabilities, processing text, images, audio, and even video with unprecedented efficiency. Of course, we are not going to debate if Gemini is better than OpenAI or any other models because all of these generative AI models are kind of still in a maturing state. And it would take some more time to really kind of call out who is the real winner. So we will kind of scope our discussion to currently to understand more about Google Gemini, the different versions that is available. And in the session, we'll also see a walkthrough of the Google AI Studio, and we will see the different endpoints available in Gemini. And we will also see how to consume Gemini within Power Platform and see a real-time working demo as well. The Google Gemini comes in three different model sizes with Nano, Pro, and Ultra as the three different versions of the Gemini. And Google Nano is a compact and efficient model within the Gemini lineup, and it is designed for streamlined performance on tasks that require less computational power. But with Gemini Pro, it is positioned kind of as a mid-size model. The Gemini Pro strikes a balance between the computational power as well as scalability, making it kind of a suitable for a wide range of tasks across different domains. And coming to the final model, that is Gemini Ultra, it stands as the flagship model within the Gemini suite. It kind of boasts unparalleled computational power and is the most capable model that is suited for high complex tasks. So these are the three different model sizes within the Gemini ecosystem. And until last month, we just had one generation of Gemini model, which was 1.0. But in February, Google launched their next generation of Gemini models, which is versioned as 1.5. And currently, Gemini Pro is available in generation 1.5, and hopefully other models might also make it to the 1.5 generation as well. Now, coming to the capabilities of the Gemini model itself, it excels in mastering human-style conversations, the language nuances, and as well as kind of interpretation as well. Its advanced language understanding capabilities makes it one of the most sophisticated language model that is available there currently. And it can be used for natural language processing, content summarization, sentiment analysis, then again, language translation, question answering are few of the language related capabilities of the model. And Gemini is designed to seamlessly reason across various data types, including text, images, video, and audio as well, kind of making it a multi-modal large language model. So this capability kind of allows Gemini to understand and process information from diverse sources of data types as well. And the Gemini is also having the ability to kind of generate code based on different inputs, kind of expanding its use cases to software development tasks as well. Now, coming to the use cases by itself, it can be used in a lot of practical scenarios. Say, for instance, for content generation, marketing agencies can leverage Gemini to generate content for clients, such as kind of drafting the blog posts or even social media updates. And from a customer support standpoint, companies can integrate Gemini into their customer service systems to handle customer inquiries more efficiently, thereby reducing the need for human agents. And from a data analysis perspective, firms that has large amount of data sets can utilize Gemini for deeper analysis, leveraging its multimodal capabilities, which will help in kind of deriving meaningful business insights. And then again, from a code development standpoint as well, the tech companies by itself can leverage Gemini in their product development efforts, thereby allowing software developers to kind of swiftly generate code from precise inputs that you'll be giving as prompts. Now, let's jump into the real hands-on session, and we'll move off of this PPT, and we will kind of first have a walkthrough of the Google AI Studio.
If you have a Google or a Gmail account, you can access Google Gemini from the AI Studio. So head over to aistudio.google.com and you can access the playground where you can chat in real time with Gemini, just like you would speak with a human. So for instance, here you can see a chat window and it's powered by the Gemini Pro model. And you can ask a question like something like the capital of United States, and hitting enter, the model will give a contextual answer back to the question that we have asked. There are a few other parameters in the playground as well that you can tweak to get more refined responses. For instance, you can play around with temperature, and temperature in AI language models like Gemini or even OpenAI kind of controls the randomness of the generated response. So a higher temperature leads to a more diverse and creative response, while a lower temperature results in a more predictable and a bit of a conservative answers. Then you have other parameters like the stop sequence. So this is more of a parameter that defines when the model should stop generating a text. It helps in controlling the length of the response generated by Gemini so that you can ensure that it doesn't continue indefinitely. Then you have a safety setting as well. And these are crucial for ensuring that the generated content is kind of appropriate and ensure you can ensure it's not sexually explicit or it's not harmful and kind of aligns with ethical guidelines. And these settings kind of help filter out potentially harmful or even inappropriate content. So by adjusting these parameters within Google Gemini's AI Studio Playground, users can fine-tune the AI model's response to better suit their preference and needs, enhancing the overall interaction experience with Gemini. So we have seen how we can play around with Gemini in AI Studio, but from a real-time application standpoint or perspective, let's see how Gemini API can be used from a Power Platform perspective. So one of the first things to do is Gemini exposes the API, which can be consumed using an API key. And to create an API key, we can click on Get API Key, and we'll just click on OK, and then it opens up the API key section where you can click on the Get or Create API Key button here, so that it will generate a API key for you. So you can just probably kind of select one of the projects that you might be having in the Google AI Studio and click on Create API Key. And it is generating an API key which you can kind of copy it and save it somewhere else, so that you can just use that whenever you want to use in Power Automate or Power Apps or wherever you might be using the API key. And the next thing to do is, once you have the API key, is to kind of get familiarized with the API itself. So you can see that there is a documentation section in the left pane of the Google AI Studio. So click on the documentation section and it kind of takes you to the detailed documentation of the Gemini API. And there is a section called REST API in the left pane itself. Just click on the REST API section. And you will now be able to see the different endpoints within Gemini and how to use them. Basically, the schema of the request and response, you will be able to kind of see it here. So the first one here is the text-only input. And it deals with the text-based natural language prompts. And basically, as a response, you get back the contextual answer from the Gemini API. And the API would look like something like this. HTTPS generativelanguage.googleapis.com. Then you have the version of the API as well as which model of the API Gemini you are using. So in this example, we are using the Gemini Pro. And along with this URL, you're sending across the API key, which we did see earlier. And again, if you want to use a different model, you can actually change that from Gemini Pro to Gemini Ultra or Gemini Nano as well. So that is a bit about the URL of the Gemini API. And now the next input that you will have to use is the header itself, where you will have to ensure that you're passing the content type as application JSON. And within the body, this is where you will be ensuring the prompt is sent across while you're invoking the API. So you can see that the prompt here is to kind of write a story about Magic Backpack. So you'll have to follow this particular scheme where you have a key value pair of JSONs that has the content key, followed by that then there is a parts key. And within that, you have the value of the prompt that you are passing in. So you'll have to follow this schema in the request that you will be sending across to Gemini API, so that a successful response would actually be, you'll be receiving back from Gemini. Now, if we go down a bit, this is basically how the response schema from Gemini would look like. You will have the responses within the candidates key, and same like that, the text key value pair will contain the final response of the Gemini. Say, for instance, the story about the Magic Backpack that we have asked as prompt is now given as a response within the text key value pair, which we can again extract. If we are using Power Automate, we can use expressions to extract this content from the text key and then use it for further processing. Now, again, if we go down, you will find that there are more parameters like safety settings, which dictate like what kind of a category of answer this is. If there is some sexually explicit content within the answer that is generated, all of these details will actually be mentioned within the safety ratings as well. So that is about the text endpoint. But if you want to work with images, then we do have the text and image endpoint, which is kind of the multimodal endpoint that we were actually speaking about. And the URL of this multimodal endpoint for Gemini would actually look similar to the one that we saw earlier, that is a text endpoint. The entire endpoint looks pretty much the same. The only difference is that previously we did use the Gemini-Pro as the text-based endpoint. But for this multimodal endpoint, we will be using the Gemini-Pro-Vision as the underlying model, the large language model for implementing a vision processing kind of requirement. So in fact, if we look, apart from the URL, the header content type would be similar, that is the application JSON, and in the body, we will be passing the image data as well as the prompt. So if you can see that here we are actually passing in almost the same schema which we have used in the previous text endpoint as well. The only difference is that along with the prompt that we are sending across, we also pass the image content as well. So we are extracting the image and converting that into a base 64 version of the image. And along with the MIME type of the image, we are actually sending along with the prompt, we are sending this data as well. So here the prompt is, what is this picture all about? And we are expecting Gemini to process this prompt as well as the image content that is being passed in and provide us with an answer. So we can see that the response is, again, as a key value pair within the text key, you find the description about the image. So we basically get back the output, which is nothing but a description about the image. And that is how we can actually navigate this Google Gemini documentation to see how does the request and response of an endpoint really work out, so that using this information, we will be able to kind of carry forward the details into Power Platform as well, where we want to probably invoke an HTTP action and call the Gemini endpoint. So these are the two main endpoints that we will kind of try to cover in the demo for this session. But even before getting into the demo part, we will try to see how we can use this, one of the endpoints that we saw right now, that is a text-based content generation endpoint. And we'll try to implement that directly in Power Platform and see how it all really fits in together. So let's get started with the instant flow, and we'll just limit us to this flow. And we'll kind of manually trigger the flow for the time being. And I'm still not comfortable in using the mode on layouts, so pardon me, I'm just switching back to the classical design interface, and we will go ahead and create or add a new step. And this time we are going to add the HTTP action, which we'll be using to invoke the Gemini API. So the first thing is to update the method of the HTTP action to post method, and the URI we have seen previously as well. We'll kind of just quickly copy it from the documentation, and we'll paste it in the URI section, and just ensure that we'll be copying the key as well. So we will kind of head over to the the Google AI Studio, and we have generated one of the API keys, which we will kind of copy it and we'll append it to the URI. And in the header section, we will head back to the documentation. We'll just kind of copy, paste the content type as application JSON. And finally, we need to append the body as well using the same schema that is available here. So we can just go ahead and paste that in the body, but unfortunately it's not beautified. So let's try to kind of format the JSON using one of the online tools. So I will just kind of copy and paste the beautified formatted JSON back to the body. And there we go. We have the body that we'll be using in the HTTP. Just that we might want to actually kind of change the question to something else, just like what we are using in the playground. Let's get the cafe of United States, and we are good to go with the running of the flow to see if this would really work. So we can just save it once and then we will test it out. So just three things we have done: the method of the HTTP action, the URI which contains the appended API key, and finally, along with the header, we have added the body which contains the prompt that we are passing to the Gemini API, and we are expecting to get back the contextual response to this particular question. So we will go ahead and manually trigger the flow. Let's run the flow by clicking on run, and it has run right now. And now let's expand the HTTP action, and you can see the body is there, the header which we have passed in, and let's head back down to the outputs window. You can see that the schema or the response of the response is almost similar to same as the one that you see in the documentation. We have the different keys like the candidates parts, as well as in the final text key value pair, we have the final answer or the contextual response to the question that we have asked to Gemini. Along with that, we do have the safety ratings and other few other parameters as well. So we did see that how we can very easily kind of invoke a Gemini API using an HTTP action. Now we want to kind of extract the data. Now, since it is returning back a whole lot of response as part of the schema response, then we would want to actually parse this using the parse JSON. So what I will do is I will just copy the body, and I will kind of add a new step, that is parse JSON, and we will try to, the content would be the body of the previous HTTP action. So we will mention the content as the body, and from generate from sample, we have copied the output of the action from the previous runtime. So we just kind of paste the body, and from that, the schema has been auto-generated. Now, what we will do is we will kind of have a new compose action to see if we can finally narrow down and just get the final response output. So there should be the parts which is the most nested key value pair that we can actually extract from it. But in case we want to extract text as well, that also we can do it. But we'll just go ahead and test and see if we can just extract the text key value pair right now. And let's go ahead and run the flow. And that's run successfully. And we can now see that we have just extracted the text key value pair. And again, if you want to use expression to kind of get the first element of this array and get the text, even that is possible. We just need to use the expression, but we get the point. We kind of use parse JSON to kind of finally drill down to the nested JSON and finally get the needed contextual response back from the whole chunk of responses which has been returned by Gemini. Now, with this, we kind of come to a closure of the HTTP action and see how we can use this action to invoke the Gemini API. Now, probably for first timers, this might look a bit of overwhelming or a bit too much. So in this case, what we can do is instead of using this kind of multiple steps of kind of using HTTP action and then again using other actions to kind of extract the data, what we can do is there is another option that is available where you can invoke the Gemini API directly, and that is called the independent publisher connector. So in fact, I have created one independent publisher connector where you can kind of, it's more like a custom connector that has been published, and it is available in the Power Automate connector ecosystem, so that even you can actually go ahead and search for Gemini, and you will be able to see all the endpoints which Gemini exposes. So for instance, right now we have used the generate text content in the HTTP action, but we can directly use the custom connector endpoint or the custom connector action that is available as part of this independent publisher connector for Gemini. So if you want to see how to kind of use this particular action, just click on more info and click on learn more. It will open the official Microsoft documentation where it will mention like what are the parameters that is being used and what is the kind of the response that you will get as a response. It will be written by the Gemini custom connector, and that will give you a good understanding on how to get started with this particular independent publisher. But even without this documentation, you can just click on generate text content, and you can just give a name for the connection name, and as well as the API key as well, which we have copied from the Google AI Studio. We'll just kind of paste it here so that this independent publisher can establish a connection with the Google Gemini endpoint. So we'll kind of click on create, and there we have it. Most of the parameters that we have used is auto-populated for us. Say, for instance, the API version or the Gemini Pro model name, all of which kind of forms the URL is auto-populated for us. And all you have to do is just add the prompt, nothing else. So you don't have to worry about the long schema that you will have to pass as a request to the endpoint, the HTTP action. You just need to kind of fill in just the prompt in this particular independent publisher connector. And again, let's go out with the same question, which is capital of United States, will be our prompt. And you don't have to worry about anything else. Of course, there are other parameters like safety settings and the stop sequence and top P and top K. All of these are actually kind of going to help you refine the response that you'll be getting back. But in case you want to keep them optional, well and good. Just paste in or type in the prompts and we are good to go. So we'll kind of save it and test it, and the flow has started running, and we can see that the entire steps has completed successfully, and obviously the HTTP action has also run. But we don't have to worry about that because we did see how the response of the HTTP action looks like. So let's go ahead and just expand the independent publisher connector and see if we are able to get the response for this particular question. And we can see that just like how the HTTP action has provided us with the response, the independent publisher connector as well has provided us back with an answer. So with the least amount of effort, you can use this independent publisher connector to set up a connection to Gemini, ask a question, and get back a response, so that you don't have to really worry about the kind of response body schema as such. You just have to pass in the prompt, and you will be getting back the response back from the connector. Same way, if you want to actually use any of the other connectors, say for instance the multimodal endpoint of Gemini, you can use instead of generate text content, you can use generate multimodal content, and you can just pass in the prompt as well as the image content if you are using image processing as the requirement, and the connector would actually process the image and get back the response to you. But we'll park it for later to see how it really works in the demo, because in the demo we will be seeing both the text as well as the image endpoint working together, and we will see that in action in the demo part. So we saw how we can use Power Automate to communicate with Gemini API using HTTP action as well as using an independent publisher connector. Now let's quickly see a demo of how Power Platform, basically Power App and Power Automate, can work together with Google Gemini. And in this demo, we will see the text generation endpoint as well as the multimodal image processing endpoint as well in action. So what we have right now here is a travel advisor that we have created in Power Apps. And we will be leveraging Google Gemini to do mainly two things here. First, we may want to know where a monument or a place belongs to. Say, for instance, we have the image of a location. So we'll kind of just quickly upload the location image. And as we know, this is the image of Taj Mahal. So now what we want to do is we want to find the location where this monument or a location belongs to. So we'll click on find, which will basically run a Power Automate. It invokes the Google Gemini. And in some time, it should bring back the destination of the location. And currently, it has kind of identified that the monument is present within Agra in India. So that way, we have kind of leveraged the Google's multimodal vision endpoint. Now, once we have the location, that is Agra, India, we will use this information to generate a 3-day or a 5-day itinerary, for which we are again using Google Gemini. And this time we are using the text generation endpoint, and clicking on the build a 3-day itinerary button, we are invoking the Power Automate. And it should generate the itinerary and share it back to Power Apps. Thus, we have got back the itinerary of touring within Agra. And you can see that day 1, day 2, and day 3 itinerary is in detail given here. And the good thing is it is even giving the detailed links to the different monuments and what you can actually visit in and around Agra. So clicking on which it will take you to the government website of Taj Mahal. So basically the Gemini endpoint was intelligent enough to give all this kind of details and create a beautifully formatted HTML, which we have shown in one of the HTML controls within Power Apps. So thus we have a very simple travel advisor prototype that works on Google Gemini in the backend. Now let's quickly see how we have implemented the flow. And in fact, even before going to the flow, we'll just see like the components within the Power Apps itself. So we have added a picture control using which we can upload the image, for which we need to find the location. And we also have a find button here, and on its select attribute, we are calling the travel location seeker flow, which is the Power Automate. And to it, we are passing the uploaded image content. And the flow then will be using Google Gemini to kind of process the image and return back the location. So we are in fact returning the location from Power Automate, which we are kind of setting it to the where location variable. And finally, within the label, the where location value is assigned, so that dynamically when the Power Automate returns the value, it will be shown within the label. Now, let's quickly look at the Power Automate flow for this functionality of finding the location of the uploaded image. We have received the uploaded image content in the input variable from Power Apps, and we have also declared a variable to hold the location. Then we make use of the independent publisher connector to generate the response. So we did see earlier how we can use either HTTP action or the independent publisher connector to invoke the Gemini API. So within the independent publisher connector, we have mentioned the API version as well as the Gemini model that we will be using within the connector. And then in the content parts section, we are providing the prompt, which is we are asking the question like, where is this picture taken, and to provide the accurate location as well. In addition to that, along with the prompt, we are also sending the MIME type of the image as well as the content of the image. And finally, the output from the Google Gemini endpoint, we are extracting that from the response schema. Basically, the response will be, the answer will be present within the text key value. And we are extracting that using the expressions, Power Automate expression, and we are storing that value in the where location variable, which we are sending back to Power App. So, which is what we really get to see in this particular label. So that kind of completes one full circle for the location finder functionality, whereby we are just uploading the image and Google Gemini finds the location and shares back the data or the location data to Power App. Now, once we have the image location, we can either generate a 3-day itinerary or a 5-day itinerary. And in case of 3-day itinerary, on its click, we are invoking another Power Automate flow. And you can see that we have a flow with the name Travel Itinerary Generated Flow. And to it, we are passing the location of the place as well as the number of days for which the itinerary has to be generated. So in this case, it's 3. But in case we are generating a 5-day itinerary, then the only difference is we are calling the same flow, but we just pass on the data as 5 for a 5-day itinerary. So now quickly jumping over to the travel itinerary generated flow, we can see that we are accepting the location as well as the number of days as input parameters from Power App. And we are also declaring a variable to kind of store the itinerary value. And then we are calling the independent publisher connector for Gemini, and the API version as well as the model name as mentioned, just like how it was previously shown in the location finder example. And currently we just are using the text endpoint, so we just have to pass in just the prompt. So what we're saying is, I want you to act as a travel advisor and generate a beautiful looking HTML. And what we're asking it to generate is the itinerary for the location, which is the dynamically passed value of the location from Power App for X number of days, which is also passed from Power App. So we are also asking to strictly follow that it is being generated as an HTML with supporting links as well, so that you can use your creativity to generate the prompt in such a way that we get back the most accurate and dynamic response from the Google Gemini endpoint. So one thing that you may notice is that we are specifically asking to generate the HTML because we are using the Power App HTML control to show the response in Power App. So having an HTML output will kind of help us to properly style the response. Finally, the Gemini output, which will be present within the text key value, is extracted using Power Automate expressions, and we are storing that in the variable, which will be where itinerary variable, which will be sent back to Power App, that we are showing within the HTML control. So thus we come to the end of the demo of Power Platform integration with Google Gemini, where we have created a travel advisor, and we have seen how we can use the Google Gemini multimodal image endpoint to kind of identify the location of the place from the uploaded image and use that information to kind of create a 3-day or a 5-day itinerary using the Google Gemini text endpoint. So Google Gemini, a collaborative creation by DeepMind and Google Research, kind of showcases the power of generative AI through its suite of large language models, including versions like Nano, Pro, and Ultra, which is tailored for various computational needs. With its latest 1.5 generation update, particularly for Gemini Pro, these LLMs would stand out for its advanced language understanding as well as multi-modal functionality. And in fact, for even the seamless integration capabilities across different platforms. Power Platform users in particular can harness Gemini's capabilities to enhance applications like, just like what we saw, the Travel Advisor, utilizing its text and image processing endpoints for innovative solutions. So this session not only highlighted Gemini's potential in revolutionizing how we approach AI-driven tasks, but it also provided a glimpse into the practical integration within real-world applications, which kind of emphasizes its adaptability and ease of use as well. So with that, we kind of come to the end of the session on Google Gemini integration with Power Platform. So in case you have any questions or clarifications, I will always be available for further discussions on my LinkedIn as well as Twitter handles. Thank you everyone for your time.